Welcome to All Creatures Podcast. This is Chris. Today we're going to discuss one of the, I would say, most important animals or insects on the planet, at least to humanity. And that is going to be the focus of Nat Geo's new Secrets of series. And now they're bringing us Secrets of the Bees, and incredible series. And today I am joined with Dr. Bugs, who is known on CBS mornings in the U.S., but Dr. Sammy Ramsey. Sammy, first, welcome to the All Creatures Podcast.
Thank you. I'm really delighted to be here and to get to talk about something I'm so passionate about. You know I love bugs, and bees are the coolest.
They are. They are really cool. They are really cool. And just really quick, your bio. You are an endowed assistant professor of entomology. And
Correct?
for those that don't know, endowed chairs are big. That's a big deal. That is a big deal. That is the pinnacle of academia when you're an endowed chair of something. And he's at the University of Colorado at Boulder. But Dr. Ramsey, it's so excited to have you today. I know, as we were saying hi, I briefly talked about my experience with honeybees. My ex-partner is a bee researcher, scientist here in New Zealand, and I've been around bees for quite a while, but they are just such an incredible species, and beekeeping is cathartic, I guess you could say. It's such a great hobby. I just want to open this up with, if people truly want to understand bees, what do you think would surprise them the most about them?
If people really want to understand bees and how they work, I think they're going to have to open their minds to the possibility that intelligence is not based on how large an organism's brain is. We always think that intelligence is going to scale. The tiniest brains are going to be the least capable of learning, processing information, doing really cool things, and the biggest brains possible are going to do the most complex stuff. But insects have figured out this small but mighty context where they can bring together a bunch of small brains and create something that is so much more complex than the sum of its parts. And that's something that you will see consistently in bees, mind-blowing things like their capacity to actually use like geometry and navigate based on the angle of the sun to their colony and to different sources of food. That kind of stuff requires complex processing, and it's the sort of really well put together information processing systems that have even inspired systems that allow us to make the internet more efficient. So bees are the coolest.
They are. And I'll tell you, Secrets of the Bees, mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. The filmography is just getting better and better and better. I mean, it seems like every series I get to watch, and it's so up close and intimate in the hive. You know, the hairs and the bee's eyes, you can see it. It's just beautiful series.
Oh my gosh, there's some gorgeous cinematography of the bees actually developing inside the cells. You can see the different parts of them developing. You can even see their brain coming together because during that stage of their life cycle, they're transparent. You can watch their brain assemble. It is amazing what cinematography is doing these days. You have to see this, everybody.
And then feeding each other, it was amazing. And there is some ups and downs, like in any of these shows, like the murder hornets show up, and I think that would be a good hook for people. What is, for you as an entomologist and an incredible science communicator?
Thank you.
What's the one misconception about honeybees that you wish would just disappear tomorrow?
Goodness. There are a lot of misconceptions about honeybees. One misconception about them that I really wish would disappear soon and very soon is that they live out in these football-shaped doohickeys hanging from the sides of trees. That's not how the honeybees live their lives, guys. Those are actually hornet nests, and if you approach it trying to get honey out of it, bad things will occur. The honeybees themselves are actually very different from hornets and wasps. They don't actually have as much of a propensity to be super aggressive because they have a major drawback. If they sting you, they die in the process. Pulling out their stinger actually ruptures their digestive system, and so they don't want to sting you. But the hornets and the wasps that they're constantly being confused as, and you'll see this in a lot of Hollywood movies. They will often say, "Oh no, they're being attacked by bees," and if you close up on these things, they are almost always wasps. And so it's this understanding that we've developed over time that bees are these scary, terrifying creatures that often comes from misconceptions and misidentifications with other organisms. And it comes from us simply not understanding the motivations behind organisms very well. One thing that I used to think as a kid was, why does any creature need to have a weaponized butt? Like its back end is a giant harpoon full of venom.
Mhm.
How is that okay under any set of circumstances? But when you realize how important it is that they protect this incredible resource of honey in their colony, that is an incorruptible source of carbohydrates, which you will find nowhere else in the world. No other creature is producing a source of sugar, which is fuel for the body of pretty much every living creature, a source of sugar that doesn't spoil. Like, that's amazing. We've had honey sitting around for thousands of years that's still edible, that we've found in the tombs of ancient pharaohs that were buried with them, that you can literally still eat. It's a little crystallized, but still good stuff. So the bees have to protect this because every creature out there wants to find a way inside their colony to get to this incredible resource. And so the best way that I can think to put it is what we used to always say in my neighborhood growing up. If you don't start nothing, won't be nothing. Just,
Yeah.
chill out around the bees. Don't cause any problems. They won't cause any problems for you.
They are docile. I mean, they are.
Mhm.
They really are. And like I said, I've worked hives, many times. You do get stung occasionally, and that's usually your fault.
Yeah.
I have clumsy hands, and if I'm accidentally squishing one, I mean, obviously it's going to defend itself. This is something you don't get stung all the time. Like literally been in shorts with flip flops and a t-shirt in front of hives, no problem. I'm not
Same.
messing with them. Yeah, my kids around. Yeah, they're not these aggressive hornets or wasps that and they have purpose. They definitely have purpose in the ecosystem.
Absolutely.
Uh, so one thing I do want to touch upon, and maybe later in the podcast if we have time, maybe expand upon this, but honeybees and native pollinators, where are they in the world? Because we hear about colony collapse disorder. And like I said,
Yes.
my ex-partner, she was doing studies in that when we were in the US. Native pollinators, that's a big focus of their research here in New Zealand
Hmm.
and around the world. Where are we, I guess, first with the honeybees with CCD, and then where are we with our native pollinators around the
Absolutely. Uh, there was a crazy, crazy context that happened, almost 20 years ago now, where our colonies of honeybees just started dying in ways that we hadn't quite seen before. Strangely enough, we would go into the colony and the queen would still be there. And maybe a dozen or so of her daughters would be walking around feeding her, but there's nobody left to do any of the other jobs. There's no one there to stand guard and be security. There's no one there to feed the babies, and so the brood dies. And the colony itself cannot sustain itself in that set of circumstances. What you expect to see in a context like that is a bunch of dead bees distributed all over the place. That's usually what happens if parasites or pesticides have killed this colony. But instead, you just don't really see anything. You see that the colony is vacant of not just the adult bees, but even the dead bodies that you would expect if this was a pesticide kill. And so people freaked out and they called it the colony collapse disorder. And I would say they freaked out quite rightly because this is the last thing that we need. These honeybees, they're not just here because they are fun, because they produce honey, because they are a great little leisurely activity where you can open up a colony, smell the wonderful wax, and get some honey for your family. It's also because they are the third most valuable livestock on this planet. After chickens and pigs, there are the bees that support our systems of agriculture and make sure that we have the food that we rely on to support a growing populace. And so we were really really concerned that this seemed to be a widespread issue throughout North America and was even present in some other parts of the world. Well, we are a good 20 years hence, and we never figured out what caused that problem. Colony collapse disorder is still a mystery. It's not currently happening, but that's actually more disturbing than if it were currently happening because we are at levels of honeybee losses annually that are higher than when we were at the peak of colony collapse disorder. And I need you to sit just for a moment in that particular fact. If we were sitting in an auditorium, I would tell you that over the last 10 years, we have lost between a third to half of our honeybee colonies. And I'd say, look to your left, look to your right. If you guys were all honeybee colonies, by the end of this talk, one of you would be gone. Like, that's one of your neighbors would be out of here. That is really, really sad, but that's the position that we've existed in for a good while now. And we've honestly gotten a bit used to it. We know we're going to lose a bunch of bees every year. And so we plan for that. And something that beekeepers have been able to do, which has confused people about whether we're actually losing bees or not, beekeepers can split colonies in half. I know you know this, Chris, because you've done this before. You can split colonies in half to make up for your losses. So if you have 8 colonies, as you said, and you lose 3 of your colonies, you can recoup your losses by splitting the rest of those colonies in half, and you could be back where you were before. But if you lose 5 colonies, of your 8 colonies, you can't split them in half anymore and recoup your losses. At that point, you have a level of net loss. For the very first time, we got beyond that 50% pivot point that we've been really concerned about here in the US. Last year, we lost more colonies than we ever have since we have been taking record of this, going back as far as we know of. That is deeply disturbing. And so even though you might be seeing some confused articles claiming that, oh, we've already saved the bees, don't worry about it, that actually comes from a misunderstanding of the data. People, if they take the data, if they take these statistics on how many colonies are alive after the spring where the beekeepers have split their colonies, then you're going to see that there's the same number of colonies pretty much that there was the year before. While if you take it during the winter, you're going to panic because it's like, oh my gosh, that's when people are losing the most colonies. And because some of these numbers have resulted in people seeing the numbers not change at all, they've been saying, oh, well, the bees are already saved. Everybody should just calm down and not worry about it. And really, more than anything, we need investment and effort to make sure that our bees can be healthier, because if we don't invest in good research, if we don't invest in making sure that our bees are safe and healthy, we are going to pay the price. The environment is going to pay the price, and it's going to be a really sad affair.
Yeah. No, they are critical, and you're right. We need to fund science. We've talked about that quite a bit on the podcast, and honeybees are just so critical, so critical. Just really quick, because and we do cover it in Secrets of the Bees. It's not a big highlight, but we do show colonies being transported to California for the almonds. You know what? 3/4 of the world's almonds comes from California. That's where I grew up, and you know the Central Valley.
So you call them almonds, Chris? When I was in
Yeah,
California, they call them the almonds. We're going to go
almonds.
out there and get the almonds.
I grew up in Southern California, so
Oh, gotcha.
that's the Central Valley for you. But they, you know, they are so important, and to us, and you know, to humanity. In Secrets of the Bees, they, again, like I said, they do touch upon, but it's more about the bees and the behavior. This is really where I just, again, astounded before I knew anything about bees, and then living with the bee researcher, I've come to appreciate the behavior. But I think your quote, I had it in here. It was, bees are a lot more intelligent and aware that we give them credit for. You mentioned the brain is the size of a pinhead, yet these behavior, these sociality is insane. I I don't know if we want to go straight to the bumblebee lab in the UK. That was one of your sequences in the film. Was that one of the most surprising things? I mean, I know you read all the literature, and you know you're one of the world experts on bees, but seeing that in person up close, was that just like a wow moment in the making of Secrets of the Bees?
You don't even know, Chris. And for everyone here, I kind of have to set the stage for you because insect intelligence is something that I've been obsessed with for a long time. My least favorite way to study insects has always been through pinning. You take an insect with all of these complex, interesting behaviors, you kill it, stick a needle through it, and then put it in a box. And while I know that there's a lot that we can learn about them through identification and taxonomy and all of this, and that's great. The part that's always attracted me has been the behavior, all of the fascinating and complicated things that they do. So I've been really, really, really interested in insect intelligence. And when I became a professor, that very first year, I made sure to drill down as much as possible into making sure that my students understood that insect intelligence is a lot broader than they've ever thought that it was. Now, for this documentary, and it's been 3 years since they contacted me about being a part of this documentary. And I joined the team. And as a producer for this documentary, I've had a lot of thoughts about, oh, we have to make sure we show this. We have to make sure that we show that. But one of the things I was most excited for us to bring into this documentary was showing people the ability of these insects to solve complex problems, to convey that information to each other, to literally teach, and also to play. And I want you guys to know we very intentionally decided that our system of trying to convince people that bees are something important that needs to be conserved was going to be less focused on how much they contribute to our food resources and more on how fascinating, how interesting, how intelligent these creatures are, because not enough people recognize that bees, just like them, are capable of doing things like learning and teaching and playing. So when I get to this lab where I've literally taught lessons about this, but I had only seen it in pictures, I had the opportunity to get eye level with these bees. And you're going to see it in the documentary. There's this transparent enclosure. And one of the most amazing things that I'd ever seen in pictures was bees playing with balls. Like in the actual study that describes this, they have the opportunity to consume sugar water, which is evolutionarily exactly what you would expect them to do. They have evolved to need sugar. And so this source of fuel should be more important to them than anything else that they could do. But instead, a large proportion of the bees in the colony will instead find these balls in the colony, these purple or yellow balls, and they'll just pick them up, roll them around to each other. They'll jump on top of them and get pushed around by other bees on them. And it is the most whimsical, it's just so incredible to see something like this in a creature that I've studied and I thought about its intelligence so much, and to recognize that they do a lot of the things that we do. Play is something, though, that we have consistently reserved for the vertebrates. We say that
Mhm,
the wolf pups will play and the lion
mhm.
cubs will play to teach each other how to hunt. That sometimes other animals will play because it's a way to make sure that their brain grows in a way that allows them to learn really quickly and effectively. But when it comes to invertebrates, when it comes to the creatures without a spine, when it specifically comes to insects, we say that that's closed off to them. That's not something that they do. But in this documentary, we get to show you guys that that is definitely something that they do. And we get to show you that they have even learned how to teach each other. You're going to see bees solving puzzles and then immediately looking immediately taking that opportunity to then teach another individual behind them how to do the same thing. And that's really critical because these insects need to make sure that when they die in a month, that their abilities are passed on to the rest of the colony. And when you pass things on between generations, that officially is culture. And that means that
Yep.
insects themselves have
Yeah.
culture.
That was my next point. Like I have chills. I
Mhm.
doing this podcast for now 9 years, studying all these different creatures. That was a foreign concept to me. Not something I learned in my graduate studies or when I was doing behavioral studies. We didn't really think of culture applying to anything but humans,
Mhm.
maybe chimpanzees or
Maybe
or
monkeys.
the
Mhm.
great apes.
Mhm.
Now we find orca, and that was the episode like really broke me into wow, they have culture. Grandmothers teaching the calves how to beach themselves to get seals and how to wave wash, all these incredible behaviors. I literally was watching it and I'm like, that's culture. That's cool. They're teaching, and they have dialects, and they have certain communities, and it is mind blowing. You have to watch this. Secrets of the
Mm,
Bees. You have to watch this because the puzzles. That's something we thought. Oh, okay, crows are really intelligent. We
right.
know again chimpanzees tool use. We're looking at other higher order species, and I'm watching this not honeybee, this bumblebee solve this complex puzzle for them, jaw dropping. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
it's
And I think
incredible.
that's important. Yeah, and I think it's important for conservation because it expands people's consciousness and minds to, okay, the world is way more complex than we thought even 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's
It
those
was
expansions
awesome.
of our thinking that really change how we approach things as scientists, too. Because if we don't have the possibility in mind, oftentimes we will miss it even when we see it. And it's really important because a lot of the possibilities that we conceive of, we actually conceive of when we're kids. We lock in ideas of what can and can't happen when we're kids watching the world around us. And so to be a part of producing a documentary that is going to reach a bunch of kids. I mean, it's going to be on Disney Plus
Yeah,
April 1st. A bunch of kids are going to be able to see this and expand their perspectives of what an insect can accomplish. Some of those kids are going to become scientists, and some of those
mhm.
scientists are going to have ideas in mind that they wouldn't have had in mind otherwise, and they're going to see things that they probably would have missed had they not seen this. So I personally am really excited that I got to be a part of this.
It is exciting. It is really exciting, and what I'm excited about it is you said Nat Geo, Disney Plus, Hulu. They've gone. I mean, we've something incredible. Like Secrets of the Dolphins was awesome. Secrets of the Penguins was incredible. Like some scenes like I've never seen before, behaviors I've
Yeah,
never
yeah.
seen before.
Secrets of the whales, secrets of the
I'm
penguins, elephants.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so excited that now they're expanding to the bees and these other
Yes.
species that, yeah, that's not
But
typical, that you don't typically
but
see in
Chris, do
these
you see
nature
what ties them
documentaries.
all together?
Yeah, well,
Because
yeah, things that we've never known before. Yeah,
yeah, because if you look
yeah,
at all
yeah.
of these organisms, we've got whales, we've got elephants, we've got penguins, we've got octopodes. When people are looking at these creatures, if they saw a picture of them, pretty much anybody would be able to identify what those animals are. They are some of the most familiar animals in the world. And when a creature becomes hyper familiar to people, they have a tendency to think, okay, I know everything there is to know about them. I don't need to learn any more about this or about that. But the problem is, a lot of that information tends to be surface level. The Secrets of series is structured to make sure that you learn things about these creatures that you never would have learned otherwise. Things that you're probably not going to learn in a TikTok video, things that you're probably not going to have seen in one of the random books that you saw about these organisms. We are showing you these creatures in a way that will establish really radical interspecies empathy because you're seeing the world from their vantage point with all the systems of cinematography that allow us to do cool things like this now. And I just, I think when people see this, it's really going to change what they think they know about the bees as they see some of these more secretive and furtive aspects of their life cycle.
No, it did. Yeah, it made me think because we got to interview Bob Poole, who did Secrets of the Elephants, and he filmed the desert elephants that hadn't had a baby in years and years and years, and he filmed the whole sequence of the calf being born, and but Secrets of the Bees, that one just so up close with them. Now again, the series is a lot about the hive. So one thing I wanted to ask you real quick because I know we only got about 10 more minutes, the bee dance. That is a behavior that just has always fascinated me. So let's put a capstone on this and talk about that fascinating behavior because it's shown beautifully in the series. What is the bee dance and what is going on in the hive? Or well, I guess it was the swarm. Uh, what's the purpose of it? Because it's such a fascinating behavior.
I think it is too. And it's something that I love talking about. So, everybody who's listening, put on your seatbelt, strap in. We are going for a wild ride. Out
Yeah.
here in these streets, The bees are flying around trying to figure out the world around them, and then they need to go back to the colony and convey this information to their sisters. When they find a really good source of food or water, they need to be able to transport that back to the colony, but one bee alone is not going to make the difference for this hive of 60,000 individuals. They need to coordinate their sisters doing the same. Bees are their own air conditioning system. Colonies get really hot, too hot, hot enough that it would cook their babies, and they can't have that happen. So if they find a good source of water that can cool down the hive, they'll fly back, they'll tell their sisters where it is, and soon you'll see a bunch of bees visiting your pool, sucking up some water. You might think, oh man, they're really thirsty. They're flying back to the colony, spitting that water on the comb, fanning their wings in front of it, and through evaporative cooling, creating an air conditioner for their colony. But they wouldn't be able to do it if they couldn't tell everyone, here is the source of water that I found. Here's the source of nectar that I found as a source of food. And then when the bees swarm, they do something that is absolutely mind blowing. We refer to it in the vein of Tom Seeley, who is a renowned bee researcher. We refer to it as the honeybee democracy, where the bees are like, hey, look, the place where we're all living together, it's gotten too big for all of us. There's 60,000 of us here, and really, this place could probably sleep 40,000 at most. So half of us are going to leave, and we're going to find a new place. But how do you do that? With all of these bees all flying off, landing on a tree, well, what we show in the documentary is when they land on that tree, they send out scouts in a number of different directions. And those scouts will find a location and measure it, which is amazing. They'll walk around. Sometimes they will even chain from bee to bee to bee to bee to bee, holding hands across a structure so that they can determine whether it's wide enough for them to build out a new house. And then when they fly back home, that scout who found a place that she thinks is amazing, she'll dance. She'll dance to tell her sisters two things: how excited she is about the location, and exactly what direction they should fly in to get there. After a bunch of her sisters have flown back and verified, no, what Ophelia said was right. Ophelia said this place is huge and it is incredible, and there's just a tiny little opening, which means it'll be easier for us to guard it. It's perfect. They will start to dance and try to convey this to the others in the hive. And eventually, they'll all start voting. They'll determine, you know what, I believe her too. Let's go and check it out. And after all the votes have been counted, they all fly off to this location. They don't ask for a recount. They trust each other that the votes have been counted and they are going to the right place. And it's actually really, really, really cool to see something like this, but it's something that most people don't get the opportunity to see. It's a very fleeting experience. The bees don't want to be there for a long stretch of time. And so our videographers, in capturing this and being able to see all of the drama that's in this moment, oh my gosh, it is chef's kiss, super exciting.
It it was done beautifully in the film. It really is, and I had to bring it up because it's a big part of it. And, to watch them, evaluate and then come back and do the dance and
Mhm.
just again, like you said, the brain the size of a pinhead, and these insects are out there doing incredible things that you wouldn't think possible. Like you said, secrets of series. That's the whole point. I do want to ask you about your Varroa mite research real quick because, again, that's covered in the second episode. Mites, if you haven't seen them, I loved, I did a lot of teaching research too. When you opened your jacket, I don't know if that's a surprise in the film, but as a teacher, as an educator, I was like, that's awesome. That is a great prop to, you're talking about it in your classroom and all of a sudden you do that and you have all these mites all over you, and I've seen them up close on bees, and it's just so horrible what they do. What is your research showing? Because I found that really fascinating that, genetically and the genetics that we're learning about to combat this, that's contributing to colony collapse disorder.
What my research has, and for any of you who aren't aware, these mites that we're talking about, these Varroa mites, they're about the size of a sesame seed. They're this dark reddish color. They climb onto the bodies of bees and they go after them both when they're at their most vulnerable, so when they're immature bees inside of a cell where they cannot defend themselves, and they also go after the adult bees, and they will liquefy the bee's liver, a portion of it, and actually suck that out of the bee's body, which is just a really rough way to go out, right? Like that's rude. I don't appreciate that. And because you might think like, "Oh, man, that's terrible. I wonder if that's like maybe 10 or 20% of colonies have these." Nearly 100% of colonies in North America have this parasite, which is really awful, but it shows that this parasite is incredibly effective at gaining supremacy over its host. And that's something that we don't typically see. A lot of parasites don't have that kind of spread or that kind of success. And seeing them this broadly distributed and that they are this virulent is a question. It poses a set of questions that we as scientists really need to answer. And so I've dedicated a lot of my time as a researcher to focusing on this parasite while also looking at some of the parasites that are on their way or that are really developing as really problematic parasites in other parts of the world. Well, these varroa mites, I've been looking at better understanding how they utilize the resources of the colony. And it turns out that they have a very efficient system of stealing from the host bees, stealing nutrients from them that they actually use to build their own egg yolk. And it makes these parasites so efficient at producing offspring. They produce babies that are really quite huge, sometimes up to 27% the body volume of the female. So that'd be like a 100-pound woman producing a 27-pound baby. And they do this every single day. Like every single day, they produce another giant baby that's ready to just pop out, and it shows up with a briefcase and a job. Like it's crazy how mature their offspring are when they are born. This kind of thing allows them to be really, really, really good at reproduction while investing very little energy because they've stolen their actual egg yolk from the host. They feed on the tissue, the liver of the bees, that produces the egg yolk proteins, and then they push those egg yolk proteins, instead of going through their digestive system and being broken down, they push them out of their digestive system, and they're pulled into their ovaries and loaded into the eggs, and it's mind-blowing. And so we as researchers, we're learning not only how the bees fight these parasites directly, because we've learned in really exciting ways that certain bees are really good at grooming the parasites off their body. You'll see it in the documentary. They'll literally whack a parasite off of their body because of specific genetics that the USDA has spent a lot of time making sure that our bees have fixed into them. But we're also working to make sure that those bees are able to fight off the parasites so that they can't get these egg yolk proteins that are allowing them to produce offspring that are really huge and really mature really fast.
Yeah, they're really terrible problem. Terrible problem.
Mhm.
Okay, final question for our listeners: what can they do to support their native pollinators or honeybees in their own yards or gardens around the world? So, what for when you're out there talking and you're like, okay, this is how you can support your pollinators. What are some things they can do
Yeah,
in their own homes?
absolutely. So there are a few things that you can do. And I know when there's a problem that's as big as honeybee die-offs, it can feel like the problem is too huge for you to do anything about it. But all of you can do something about it. And here are a few things for you to consider. If you were to rewild your lawn, oh my gosh, the ways that you could help your bees right now by just not mowing the lawn. Think about that. You wake up on a Saturday morning and you're like, oh my God, I gotta mow the lawn. And then wait a minute. I don't have to mow the lawn. I listened to Dr. Sammy on the All Creatures podcast, and I rewilded it 2 months ago. Amazing.
Yep, yep,
Huge.
yep.
Because all of those flowers that have been waiting to reclaim that land that you have all of this grass in, this grass that provides no pollen, that provides nothing that the bees can really consume. There's no nectar there. The pollen that's even provided in some of these grass species is not something that's going to be collected by bees. It's wind dispersed. And so at the end of the day, there's not a lot that grass does to help any of these bees. But if you rewild that lawn and allow for wildflowers to reclaim it, oh my gosh, not only are you providing food for bees, you're providing habitat for them to live in. When those flowers are drying out, the bees will actually go inside of the stems, hollow it out, start laying eggs, and create a nursery there. You've provided a daycare center for those bees. And then lastly, you can provide them with shelter by just not raking your leaves. Leave those leaves out there. Let them naturally provide protection for the bees that are overwintering in the ground. Let it naturally provide a cover to their home so that it's not flooded out when it rains. Leave those leaves alone. A lot of the yard care that we've done wasn't with any systems of ecology in mind. A lot of the lawn care and yard care that we have been encouraged to do has been more on a basis of what some people have thought of as the prettiest or most aesthetically pleasing. Oh, you can't leave those leaves there. That's not pretty. But let's reorient what we think of as pretty or ordered into something that's actually going to help the organisms around us, because the things that I just said that you can do, they will have a huge impact. And the last one is utilization of substantially less lawn care insecticides. You don't need the insecticides, the herbicides, the weed killers. All of that stuff builds up in the environment. It builds up in the groundwater. It gets into the flowers and into their nectar, and it poisons the bees that we are here to protect. You don't need that weed killer. The dandelions are fine. A weed is just the right plant in the wrong place, and you get the opportunity to determine what is the wrong place. I have determined there is no wrong place for dandelions. Let them grow. Let them grow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're good too when you can eat them. So it's funny to tie all that up because earlier you talked about the younger generation watching Secrets of the Bees. It is important because I interviewed last year a high school student from Wyoming, Loris, and it just stuck with me because he was part of a grassroots movement to get the city stop using pesticides. He was going around and educating the local community on what pesticides are doing to insects and thus birds and thus, all up and down the food web. And it just, when I see that and I read that and then I spoke to him, it gives me so much hope for the future. And in this series, you talk about hope. There is a lot of hope for honeybees. But again, Secrets of the Bees, Nat Geo, Disney Plus, Hulu, airs 1st of April in 2026.
Mhm.
Look for it. You will see Dr. Sammy Ramsey in there. You will see the Bumblebee Lab, our good friend Bertie Gregory in
Mhm.
there, up close with bees, getting some of the filming. And uh, Sammy, thank you for what you do.
Of course.
Thank you for battling through your PhD. I read your story. It touched my heart. But you're out there. You're communicating science. It's so important to us and the planet. So just thank you for what you do and keep it
Thank
up.
you.
Uh, where can people learn more about what you're doing outside of Secrets of the Bees?
For sure. So you can actually learn more about what I'm up to on Instagram at Dr. Sammy Grams. That's my handle. You can also learn more about my research at ramseyresearchfoundation.org. And there you can learn about all the cool initiatives that actually ended up getting me connected with National Geographic in the first place. I was not born a National Geographic explorer. They actually found me through the research I was doing in Thailand, and it has been a wild ride ever since.
Yeah, it's incredible. Great work. Secrets of the Bees. Check it out. You won't be disappointed. But Dr. Ramsey, thank you so much and take care.
Thank you. Thank you.